Space, the final frontier.
No, space, the final vortex of death and nothingness. That's what this movie taught me. It's scary. Gravity. So Gravity is a movie starring Sandra Bullock. She's in space on the space shuttle with George Clooney and a crew of astronauts. They're all working on the Hubble telescope, and then shit hits the fan. By shit hits the fan, I mean a lot of debris comes flying their way. Pretty much debris in space it's bad news. Think of Normandy Beach times 1,000. After that disaster, the thing that's harnessing her gets blasted, it gets separated, and she's just she's in bad shape at that point. Because space is disease and danger wrapped in darkness and silence, as Bones taught us. Yeah, he didn't agree with that Final Frontier shit. Now, doing a review for Gravity is so hard because the trailers are so shrouded in secrecy. You feel like revealing anything's a spoiler, and I don't want to ruin that for you guys because I love going into this movie and I was like, it's Sandra Bullock and it's space, and that's what I know. But yeah, ultimately Sandra Bullock is out there in space. She's in her spacesuit and she's like, I need to get through this shit alive. It's like, that's a real phobia. There are people on Earth who will never go into space, who are deathly afraid of the concept of just floating out into space. This movie sounds really boring the way I'm describing it. It's not. It's badass. When I was going into this movie, I was like, okay, it's gonna be another one of those I'm isolated from everything, gotta survive movies, but this time it's really isolated because it's really space. It's so good. It's so cool. George Clooney's in the movie. He's awesome. I love seeing George Clooney in this role because from what I know, he's perfect for an astronaut. I've known a couple people who have met astronauts. The way they describe astronauts, it's like it's George Clooney in this movie. He understands that this situation is the worst situation a human being can possibly be in, but he's like, you gotta stay cool, you gotta stay calm. Really, the movie's about Sandra Bullock pulling through this impossible scenario to stay alive, which is one of those, yeah, no shit kind of statements, but this is the underdog story. Anyone drifting out into space, no matter who they are immediately the underdog if they're in that situation. You take James T. Kirk, Mr. Outer Space, put him where Sandra Bullock is in this movie. He is now the little underdog. He's a fledgling. He knows nothing. And you really grab the scope of that. I mean, the scenery in this movie is, you feel like you're in outer space. The stars are clear. You can see more stars in this movie than you ever have. When she's looking down on Earth, you feel like you are up there. I saw the movie in 3D. Usually I'm not an advocate of 3D. I'd like to think the 2D version is perfectly enjoyable also. I would like to think it's just as good as this movie was for me, but I'm just saying in 3D, it did add a bit of that Hubble telescope 3D adventure kind of thing, and I really like that. The visual effects are out of this world. I know, it was easy and I couldn't resist myself. I really couldn't. Everything looks so real in this movie. There are so many moments. It reminded me of Mass Effect 2 in a couple parts. You know, in Mass Effect 2, the Normandy is getting its ass kicked and you step in between those force fields and you can look up through the whole breach and you see a planet and you're like, that is space. It feels like that throughout this entire movie. This movie is going to get nominated, if not win, for Best Special Effects this year. I know The Hobbit's still coming out. I know Thor is still coming out. I'm just saying Gravity is going to be up there. But I had one thing in my mind that I wanted to see in this movie specifically, and I told a couple people this. I was like, I want it to be like Firefly, where things happen in space and you don't hear anything. Not only is that the case, but everything you hear is really from her point of view. When people are talking to her, it sounds like the Burger King drive-thru.
Did you also be one Big Mac, large order fries, and a waffle cake?
They sound more clear than Burger King though, so it's okay. The first thing she's doing is unscrewing this thing, and it sounds like you have your ear up to your arm and you're unscrewing it because you can hear the reverb up through the spacesuit. Everything else though, this debris is cutting through shit. You just see, which is really frightening. It's just the fear of the unknown kind of thing. This movie preys upon that. Throughout this entire movie, I felt a sensation. I was really trying to figure out what this was for the entire movie. It's just that knot in your throat. It's not tears. You're not gonna cry, but you feel like you're beaming and you don't know why. And really, it's because you're rooting for her so much. The sensation, the emotion is pride. She's just this person. She's like, it's too big, it's so much, but I really have to find a way through this. If you feel there needs to be a negative addressed for the movie, here it is. When going in to watch Gravity, do not drink Red Bull or any energy drinks whatsoever beforehand because you will die. You'll have a heart attack of anxiety and intensity. Nice knowing you. Yeah, that goes for you too, movie theaters. Don't sell that shit. Not to people watching this movie. Gravity was intense. It was exciting. It was visually great. The acting was awesome. Sandra Bullock kicked ass in this movie. I love the soundtrack too. I went on YouTube that night and just listened to the soundtrack. I was like, oh, okay. Gravity is one of my favorite movies of the year. This movie sunk its claws into me and I was like, I ain't moving and I want to go back and see this movie again. And Gravity absolutely is awesometacular. Alright, so space thriller. What's your favorite thriller in outer space? Whatever it be, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.